All right. So there are several different reports, some that you may not even know, and you might be new to this, so of course you really may not know. On your handout and on slide 44 here, we go over the different testlet reports, which are those individual testlets students take, as well as the summative reports, which you have not seen yet. So no panic there. You will see them coming soon. So the student testlet report is available weekly. So when I say that, if a student tests on a Monday, that following week on Thursday, you can anticipate to get that report. No matter what day in that week, Monday through Friday, it will be the following Thursday. So you can kind of think about that when you're scheduling out your testlets, like Erin said. If I know I'm not going to get that the next day, or I might have to spread that out, maybe Thursday is a really good day. Get your attendance patterns, whatever that might be, so that you can have that closer to your assessment time. These testlet reports are shared within the Kite parent portal and are connected with parents. So as soon as they're available to you, they're also available to the parents. So if you have your parents logged into that, and we'll show you how to do that in a little bit, it really helps with one more step of not having to send in. People realize that those are hand scored. I actually got to talk to the lady not long ago who she literally read every single child's entry in the entire state, which made me go, holy cow. But because they're hand scored and they start as soon as they're submitted, we expect those 2 weeks after the close of window two. And I want to remind you, this is in comparison to even pre-pandemic when we actually had those performance tasks. We weren't getting the results of those performance tasks until the following, either way late in May or the following fall. So now the intention of having that in the middle of the year so that you actually have some instructional utility with those performance tasks. Really exciting for us. Hopefully for you too. You get some information before it's too late and those babies go off to the next teacher and you're like, oh, I just need 3 more weeks. Then the classroom testlet report is also available weekly at the same time you'd get the student ones. Obviously, if you have some spreading out, that would change depending on how many students you have in there. And last year, we were not able to get the school testlet report and the district testlet reports until after that third window. This year, they are going to be available after every window. So after that first window, you'll be able to get a school and district level testlet report. On the right-hand side, you'll see the summative reports. One of the beautiful things about MAST in general is that this is a Montana-made assessment. When it comes from range finding to find out what a proficient student looks like in the performance task, or also we did a standard setting just a few weeks ago, and I think I've seen some people on here that were a part of that standard setting, where Montana educators are the ones that help support. What does a proficient student look like? An advanced proficient, a partially proficient, and a novice student. So it's not OPI saying this is what it is. It's a lot of time and effort in looking at how students did on every item and spreading those out and seeing what is a proficient student in Montana. It's one more beauty of our assessment here. We are working on finalizing those cut scores with our teams, and then we will have student summative reports available in October. It's exciting. And then we'll get the following year, we're anticipating it will come out much sooner than that October date because we won't have to do standard setting next summer. Same thing will come with the classroom, school, and district level summative reports. And I'll show you what those look like here in a little bit. So in general, with any score report, let alone MAST, we know that each score report provides just a snapshot on how students are doing in the classroom. You guys know your students when they walk in, and the beauty about MAST is it might be statewide assessment day, but you as the classroom teacher and test administrator can decide, this is my favorite go-to. There was a dog on the playground this morning and they all came in crazy after recess. So we're actually going to take an extra day and we're going to do this tomorrow during our session. We're going to review one more time. We're going to keep moving through our standards and our instruction. We don't have to pause everything and waste a learning day because of that. We can have that flexibility. We also we know you know this, but score reports are meant to support your professional judgment, not replace it. While we know this assessment is technically sound, it is valid, it is reliable, we have done all the technical parts of that, it is just one picture of your child in your classroom. Also note that just like we would with any good assessment, you need multiple measures and it should be considered along with other information. So we've heard of some districts who have taken away their unit tests. They said our unit tests for math, they were standards based. You're now doing that for us. So we can actually remove some assessments. they use something like that assessment audit tool to have that help them make that decision. Another great thing to know is just because they have, let's say were in the lower band on this last year's assessment, you have to acknowledge that every item has different complexity levels. They're worth different amount of points. They were more challenging, less challenging, and all of these pieces don't mean that they are 100% proficient or not proficient at that. It is just that student's performance on those items. And we've dropped this in there before, and we'll grab more links for you, but you can always refer to those assessment specification documents to understand what that different complexity levels on those questions are. And again, we always go back to kids and why do we use these school reports? What use are they for us? And in that survey that we did with 36,000 students across the state, one of the questions we asked was, do you look forward to knowing how you did on the assessments? And I was blown away. I honestly didn't know, because with Smarter Balance, I don't know how many of my students ever actually knew how they did, except when they got that letter at home in the phone and their mom or dad said, "Hey, what'd you do here?" So if you look at this here, 82.5% said yes, they want to know, whether it's the 48% or almost 7,000 students saying they wanted to improve. And another almost 5,000 students, yeah, I want to know, but because I'm curious, like that, if that data doesn't tell you we should share score reports with students, I don't know what will. So it's pretty fantastic. And then of course we have our students that'll be like, I don't care. You're just going to have those sometimes, but maybe if we start goal setting and incentivizing those things with them and them seeing the value in their learning, maybe we'll bump that number up a little bit more. We could only hope. Another question was, do you learn better if your teacher uses your score report to show you where you are doing well and where you can improve? And the big highlight for us was, wow, we had over 5,000 students that had never seen their score report. So given this was after the second window, so they had a minimum of 6 testlets in math by this point, and 4 plus the performance test in ELA. And so as we looked at that first slide saying, I really want to know my score, I want to know how to improve, or I'm just curious, but over 6 or 5,000 of these students said they had never seen them. So we have opportunities here that maybe we didn't realize in the past. Maybe teachers didn't know how to get to those score reports. We just want to make sure you have the access because our students want to see them and they want to know how to do better. We could talk about growth. All right, now we're focused on proficiency, but I'm going to show you something we're working on that's coming your way soon. So one of the big things that you will see change on the interpretation of the reports is last year for the 2024-2025, we had performance bands. That was because we had not done standard setting yet, which is when we had the cut scores for what it means for each of those proficiency levels. So these bands were a normative test. So based on the previous year's pilot, we took where students scored and broke them up into thirds. So you could have had 2 out of the 12 points available and still been in the top third because it was a really challenging testlet. So that's how it was broken up last year. Now, because we have done standard setting and we know our cut scores, we have transitioned to having performance levels. So this means the performance aligns with their overall performance, not specifically as it relates to the proficiency on the standards assessed. So this will give you a clue in where they are in their performance across that testlet. You'll see the descriptor down below. It indicates that they demonstrated partial understanding of the content and skills assessed in this testlet. So again, those will be related to the scale scores or the cutoff scores that they had on those. So it will be different. Tell everybody far and wide. And it will be more related to what you will see for those proficiency. I'm going to answer a few of these in the side. The anchor tests were not scores or testlets that you were ever going to get results from. Hopefully you saw that in the test administrator. If not, now you know that. What the anchor testlet is, it was our response to the field saying we'd rather have shorter testlets and have the opportunity to do field testing at a different time. But there's also different components for our research. So we have different ways to test, if they take this math item in September or October versus May, how well will they do? What's the difference in there? So we will not get results from those anchor tests. Thank you for that question. All right. So our next thing here, we're going to dive into what the upcoming year's testlet reports look like. Some of you have seen these, some of you have not. So again, we have the levels now rather than the bands that we had previously. You'll see level 1, level 2, and level 3. This specific testlet is the compare and find equivalent fractions. The information that you're going to see here is directly from those test specification guides where it tells you what is this testlet on. So you'll be able to go through that. You'll know, your parent will know, your student will know, what was I actually assessed on in this testlet. And again, it aligns with their overall performance, not their necessary proficiency on these standards. And that, again, is because of the different complexity levels and the different depths of all of the questions and items throughout there. So here it'll spell out if your student was in level 2, it indicates that they demonstrated partial understanding of the content and skills. Again, if you go to the MAST portal, which we will have many links for you and we have more, it also has a MAST student report interpretation guide. So that interpretation guide will help you better understand what does it mean for my child. One of my favorite parts, and I'm not going to dive in right now, is the misconceptions. So Katrina Engeldrum, our math coordinator, will take you through how to use misconceptions and better understand them here in a few sessions. But our misconceptions tells you because of the questions they got wrong and the answers they gave, we can say that this child is having this misconception. So for Fatima here, she or he is incorrectly using substitution to evaluate an equation. We can't give you what those specific and like what questions they're answering wrong. You know, there's this thing called test security. So if you saw the exact questions, we'd have to start over with our items every year, and nobody wants to do that. Nor should we have to charge more for all these things too. So then the testlet summary down here, we have our standards, the specific standards that are assessed, and the points earned versus point possible. Remembering that each item may be worth a different amount of points. So they might have 12 items, or they might have 15 points that it is worth. It really just depends on each one of those items. On the bottom part of this same testlet report, you actually get item level information. So you don't get the actual item itself, but you will be able to say, this question evaluates student understandings of sequences and series. So they got this incorrect, and this is the standard that they got incorrect. So it breaks it down within that item. You'll even see how more specific it gets rather than that broad standard. So a lot of information we can use. Man, I have 12 students with that misconception. What do I need to do? What is the curriculum missing? What review needs to happen? And that's where the beauty of the classroom testlet report comes in. Natalie, that's a great question. We have a few years for that transition to happen. The new math standards don't go into place for another year. And I want you to know, because we were the team that also got to do that work, they are still very much closely aligned to what's there. So we will do an alignment study, but the 3rd through 8th grade standards are not going to be changing that much. So that worked out really well for us in this aspect. And that was a goal of ours also, so that we wouldn't have to completely change the system. All right, here we have the classroom testlet reports. Again, you'll see what is this testlet about, our summary results for the levels that different students were in. And here you're going to see the state standard as well as the average percent of points earned. So again, it's not, oh man, my class passes 65% of it on the standard. It's how many points they earned out of the total amount of points available. So about the performance there. And then it goes into the misconceptions as a whole class on this one testlet. So you can, as an educator, go, man, I have 3 students or 8 students or whatever it might be that are consistently having this, that have this misconception. What can I do? We know math builds upon itself. If they are incorrectly interpreting graphs, that's not going to go away. That's going to be a consideration that they're going to have to continue to build on as they move through their standards and their different grade levels. So we need to make sure that we understand that. A lot of opportunities for pulling in small groups. It doesn't mean that you have to completely stop everything you're doing in your classroom. This one student might need a 3-minute check-in where you do some practice together and you just check on them. I like calling it a verb. You just got to teacher it. What are they missing? What do they not know? How can I help them make sure that they get this versus just moving on and then having those continual misconceptions. And Katrina will do a great job of explaining what continued misconceptions do for student learning. Ooh, Shannon, I hope you stick around for the misconceptions part later because we do have that that is just the coding that they do to tie back to them, but in our test specification guide, we do spell out what are all the misconceptions by grade level so that you can see what those align with. But that's a great question. It's just our coding to make sure how that linkage worked out to track those misconceptions, and it's spelled out more like you saw on that last report right here. So this is how we link this MEO5 misconception is for this one in that description and continued there. Hopefully that helps you there. All right, and then when we move down on the classroom testlet report, you'll see here's how all my students did, and then you'll also see those misconceptions lined out there. So you might already know, man, these three are in the same math group. They have the same misconceptions. It could just be something quick I need to do, or it could be something that we need to move, just track and just monitor for the time being. We are going to do a flood the chat. So we're going to start getting into breakout rooms for our next few sessions. I want to make sure we have some answers. So which insight from the math score reports excites you the most about supporting student learning? Yes, we will get there soon, Corey. Which insights from the math scores reports excite you most about supporting student learning? So I'm going to wait to get at least 10 entrants or submissions into our chat. Yes, misconceptions. If I would have had that, just a little bit more information. And I think of on a school level too, if you all have the same curriculum and you're all teaching it every year, you can now go, man, this same misconception continues to come up. What does that mean for our curriculum? Do we need to do some supplementing here? What's happening? Okay, I was hoping I'd see a lot of misconceptions, but all right, we're going to move into student tested reports for English language arts. Again, we have a similar model, but different. We've heard many times, I wish you could do misconceptions for ELA. We don't quite have that. That's a little bit different linkages that they'd have to do on those items. And ELA is just a different beast, let me tell you. So again, you'll see that we're going over to levels rather than the bands from last year. That is also based on their grade level expectations, based on their performance. Again, our MAST student report interpretation guide will spell out all of these things, and we also have it available so that parents can understand those as well. The difference with ELA resides in the clusters information that you will get. So here we have the 5 different clusters within these standards: key ideas and details, craft and structure, integration of knowledge and ideas, knowledge of language, vocabulary acquisition and use. So this is the same on all of these throughout the school year for ELA. So you will be able to watch how many points they're earning in craft and structure, in knowledge of language, in their vocabulary. And you can go, man, Joseph's really having a hard time with vocabulary. I've seen it on 4 testlets now. I have another 3 months that I can really, he might need some interventions here. And it could be that clue to you that you need to do some diagnostics. You need to really dive into why is Joseph having a hard time in this area? When we go to the bottom, again, we have that item level by standard, what they got correct or incorrect on each of these questions. Again, you can't see those questions, but you can know they are or are not using the Greek and Latin affixes, which again goes to that vocabulary. Now I know it's not just vocabulary. We're looking at those affixes. What do I need to do on prefixes and suffixes to support this child? What language knowledge do they still need to understand that? And again, this kiddo, partially correct also on general academic word or phrase in a text. So yes, you have that first indicator of vocabulary, but now you can break it down even further. It's good to know, like Tressa mentioned earlier, we have a literary and informational passages throughout for each one of those windows. So you'll have a beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of year. So you can look at those based on those genres as well throughout the year. As we get to the classroom level report, you'll now see the average percent of points earned for each of those domains. Man, we're, as a class, you can go right here and feel some confidence. We're really understanding craft and structure, integration of knowledge and ideas. something's going on with key ideas and details. If I only have 60% average points here earned, how can I not change anything necessarily about my curriculum or anything, but how can I emphasize key ideas and details in the coming months to make sure that we are amplifying that? It doesn't change your curriculum, it doesn't change your program, it doesn't even change your resources. It changes how you utilize this information for instructing students in the classroom. Again, vocabulary acquisition might be a monitor. 80% is not bad, but what are some little things I can do with the same vocabulary plan I had for the year as a teacher to just make sure that tier one instruction is very strong? And again, you'll see their performance levels at the bottom with the level 2, 1, and 3, and the summary results as well. The performance tax. Now, I'm not going to go in too deep here. That is what Claire is here for today, but I want to make sure you better understand these reports, and I want to calm your nerves a little bit. Something we realized this year is we, as a state, have not seen students' written scores in a long time. And this is not an uncommon thing to see that students really struggle in this area. Remember, about 40% of our students are showing proficiency in reading. We shouldn't necessarily be surprised about what that looks like on the writing side of things. So it is information we now have in the middle of the school year specific about student writing that we can do something about. So I'm really excited for what Claire has for you and what you can do about it, but I want to make sure you understand what this report has. So on this left-hand side, and I know it's a little blurry, I tried to grab a better screen grab and it wasn't liking me today. But we have our dimensions, which includes written expression organization, written expression purpose and development, and knowledge of language and conventions. You'll also see the description that summarizes the key characteristics of these things. And I know a lot of people don't realize that this is all also explained on the rubrics that were provided for the performance task. If you didn't know that, you're going to know that next year. You're going to be able to utilize those tools to intervene in your classroom and help support students to make improvements in their writing. And then their scores. What is it? I believe my next one actually shows it a little bit better on the classroom level. Yes, okay. So here you'll see those same areas: written expression with organization, written expression purpose and development, and knowledge and language of conventions. Now this is broken up a little bit differently because it's based on points earned. I want you to notice that this is a total of 8 points on the entire school year for English language arts. So hopefully that also gives you some ease. When we have over 100 points in all of it that build up into our summative score, it's 8 points. Are they important points? Absolutely. We want our students to be strong writers. We want to help make sure that they get what they need to be strong writers. But it is 8 points, so we can take a big breath there. Here you'll see how it's broken down and color-coded on each of the students within that classroom report. So here she got a total score of 5 out of 8. That these rubrics will line up to show you what does it mean for a student to get a 2, a 1, or a 2 in these different areas. So between that and the rubrics and the test specification guide, I hope that you really have some opportunities to utilize this information better for your classroom. And then here we have the school testlet report for ELA. So again, these are going to be available after every single window. And maybe as a classroom teacher, you might not use this one that often, but if I have curriculum directors in the room, if I have principals, if I have interventionists, this might be a tool that you really use to think of the bigger picture. What do we need to do for our grouping? Does a certain grade level need more support for interventions? Does the tier one just really need to get down to those foundational level information? But this will really help you identify throughout the school year, where are we having challenges within our ELA performance? So again, we have our cluster information, craft and structure, we're doing great. Integration of knowledge and ideas, we're doing wonderful. What's happening here with key ideas and details? If I have 114 students here total, and I have 60% points earned on that one, that is a bigger level discussion. That's a grade level discussion. That's a school level discussion. What do we need to do to look at these things to support that? What is our curriculum missing? Again, you'll see that with knowledge of language and the vocabulary acquisition. So it's not everything. It doesn't tell you you have a problem in vocabulary, but it gives you insight on what can I do as a leader and as a teacher to make instructional changes in these areas to see that go up. So while we might not have a growth metric right now, you can be watching those different components to see how your students are moving up. And again, you can also see this by class. We don't want this to be an opportunity to be like, oh, that class is struggling again. We all know we have apples, oranges, and kiwis walking into our classroom, and they are all at their own levels when they get there at the beginning of the year. This is not to do that. Maybe you're piloting a different curriculum. Maybe you have a teacher that's really strong in writing. Maybe you're just passing kids around and doing stations or whatever that might be. It just gives you more information as an instructional leader for what to do next. And here you'll see the school template report for math, which again, we just bring that information and move it up to the school level. So when we talk about those misconceptions, there's more misconceptions in this for all of math for third grade, but these are the 4 misconceptions that are coming out and the amount of them. So if we have 61 students with this misconception out of 114 students, that causes you to take a breath and a pause. What is happening here that is creating these common misconceptions and it's continuing throughout the school year? We also get a look at it at the standard level report and the percents there as well. All right. Here we have the district level, which again is just that next level. So out of 454 students on this specific testlet, we have 50 students that had that misconception. Not as bad as it was at the school level. And maybe the schools are doing different curricula. Maybe there's a lot of different things happening. That's what your instructional leaders can help support with and look at and just give you one more piece of information to make decisions. I'm all about data-driven decision making, and if this can help you make those decisions versus we're going to change because someone told us we need a new program, I'm all about that. And again, you'll see the same thing and moving it up as district level ELA report. And it looks like we really just need to look at those key ideas and details for the school. Something's going on there. All right. So I want to take a moment and I want you to just reflect on these. These are also in your note-taking guide. When we look at data, data tells us a story. So when you are specifically looking at your district and school reports, and I was a principal as well as a curriculum director, I need to know what the story is telling me. What is going on with those key ideas and details? What is going on over here with vocabulary? Why are we doing so great up here? And let's celebrate that. Like, let's celebrate these things too. It's not all about what's going wrong, but we are killing it in craft and structure. We have very few students with this misconception, and I know why. What stories are we telling this as we bring this information to our school board, as we as a state bring this information to legislators and the Board of Public Ed? What stories are the data telling us? What can we do for students and teachers to help use this information to tell that story? What uses do these reports have and for whom? Why would I need a school level report and a district level report? I have a lot of school support specialists in the room from OPI. When they're having these conversations with their schools, they can go into this with them and have them and ask them those same questions. What is this report telling you? What story is happening here? What questions can you then ask yourself about what steps we need to do next? And again, this isn't the end all be all. We have other student information. We have other tools that we can use in conjunction with these reports. And because I can't not mention it, and I'd love to take a little quiz right now on everyone's integrated strategic action plan, but every school in the state had to submit an integrated strategic action plan this year for accreditation. It should be directly tied to student performance, your CNA, which is your comprehensive needs assessment, and your graduate profile. I, as a district leader or a school leader, how is this data supporting? We want to improve 10% in math. We want to improve 5% here. We want to look at fractions, whatever that might be. How is the data supporting the need for